Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. This is episode 34. It's Tuesday, October 24th. I'm going to make this a quickie. I've said that before, and I have failed, but had a lot going on, so I'm going to go over some, went to the Cannibal Corpse show, went and saw Friday the 13th in the theaters downtown Austin, which was cool, and went to Baroness a couple nights ago. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to do full like show reviews or whatever, but I'll just give my thoughts and my experiences there, and hit some fan mail. I've gotten some pretty cool questions over the past week, and then I'll talk about Life is Killing Me, Typo Negative, because somebody requested that I talk about that, and I'll talk about Dead Again, which you see there next episode. So yeah, went and saw Cannibal Corpse, Mayhem, Gore Guts, missed Blood Incantation, which sucked. It was a 2-hour drive to San Antonio, and the show was like kind of early. Shows are starting earlier, it seems, which I'm a fan of, but man, when it's a 2-hour drive and there's a hour-long backup on the interstate, unfortunately, sometimes you miss Blood Incantation. I'm sure they were great. Gore Guts was cool. Well, let me back up. Show was at the Aztec Theater in San Antonio, which is right there on the Riverwalk. San Antonio rules. If you've never been there, it's great for metal shows. To me, it's Texas is like great, period, for metal shows. Every city in Texas is cool, even the smaller ones. But if I had to pick a favorite, no disrespect to anybody, but we all know San Antonio's the shit. It's metal, man. That's a metal ass place. And the Aztec Theater is cool. It was my first time ever there. It's like that Nickelodeon show, Legends of the Hidden Temple. It's got that vibe for sure. And yeah, I got there and Gore Guts was playing, and man, they're good. And I totally forgot until I saw him standing on the stage. My friend Kevin from Dysrhythmia, who we played with in New York a couple years back. He's playing guitar for him, so I got to chat with him briefly. But what a forward-thinking band for the time. You know, they're like OG death metal band. I would call them second wave, but almost first wave death metal band. I mean, I guess they are first wave, but they kind of came to prominence a little bit after bands like Morbid Angel and stuff like that. But they're right there at the beginning of, I'll just say beginning of death metal, right? And you can still hear their influence on newer bands. And, you know, Metal Mike was there, who plays guitar for Soulfly and was in Anselmo's solo project, Flesh Hoarder, all kinds of bands. But he was saying he was hearing like how they influence Gojira and stuff, and that he's right. And I never even thought about it that way. But massive influence on death metal, obviously, but I think their influence has branched even out of death metal into progressive music and whatever the hell bands like Gojira are, doing all kinds of weird guitar stuff where they're barring the fret with the left hand and then almost like scrape tapping up and down the neck. Just really crazy shit. So it was cool to see them. Cool to see Kevin, catch up with him briefly. And dude, Luke from Gore Guts, OG that he is, selling his own merch all night. That is road dog shit, man. I was like blown away by that. And Kevin was like, dude, he loves doing it. So, man, respect to that. That's tough. That is tough. Mayhem was next. You know, the first guy I saw when I got to the Aztec, like I said, it's down on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, really cool vibe. And I was walking up to the venue and just kind of did a lap around it just to see what was going on. And first guy I saw actually was John Araya, who I've heard many, many good things about. He's been working in the biz forever, and super nice, really sweet guy. So I got to finally meet him face to face. But the second guy I saw was Necrobutcher from Mayhem, and he was just by himself. pondering his orb or whatever, looking over the river walk, just like standing there, just pondering, probably still on his way to kill Euronymous. And he sort of looked like he was literally just by himself out in the general pop, looking at the river walk, just thinking, getting in the zone or whatever. And he sort of glanced at me and I glanced at him, and there was almost a thing of like he was expecting me to go talk to him. I'm like, nah, bro, I'm good. So Mayhem played. It was, whatever. If you like that shit, they're good. Put on a show, I guess. But not really my thing. Freezing Moon was cool. That's undeniably a badass song, obviously. They played the Death Crush EP, which was whatever. I mean, there's bands that get to a certain point and it's, they're cashing in on a name. And no disrespect to them. Dude, man's got to eat. Necrobutcher's got to pay those bills and shit. So whatever. But I wouldn't want to play in that band on the same day in the same zip code as Cannibal Corpse, personally. You can't hang. Nobody can hang with Cannibal Corpse. They're the best death metal band ever at this point, period. There's not a whole lot of bands I would drive 2 hours to see, but I've seen them a bunch too. I mean, toured with them and so watched them every night of that tour. And every single time I've ever seen them play, it's like the heaviest. It's either them or Crowbar, heaviest band ever. One of those two, and it never, ever, ever gets old. And Cannibal Corpse has never put out a bad record. They've never put out a lackluster record. I think I would give an A rating to every Cannibal Corpse record that's ever been put out. Some of them are A-, some of them are A+, but they're all A's. And those dudes came out and opened with Scourge of Iron. There's not anything heavier than that, period. The dudes are in their 50s, and all they've been doing since the year I was born is just crushing. And I see, there's a whole lot of posers involved in death metal today. We all know that. I don't think there's enough gatekeeping in a lot of ways. Like, there's, to me, a poser is somebody that's disingenuous. That's it. It doesn't matter if you like Taylor Swift. If you love Cannibal Corpse for real, and not just because people on Instagram that you want to be part of their little clique or whatever make you think you're supposed to like Cannibal Corpse. Like, if you actually like Cannibal Corpse, you like whatever else you want. It doesn't matter. To me, that has nothing to do with being a poser, like eclectic taste or unique style or unique personality or anything like that. That's got nothing to do with being a poser. What you wear, what you look like, where you're from, none of that has to do with being a poser. Being a poser to me is like being fake, being disingenuous. And pretending to be into something when you aren't, because you're trying to get cool points or whatever. And I see a lot of reviews. Like, I'll read some Cannibal Corpse reviews here and there. I used to subscribe to magazines and shit like that. And the last couple of records, and it's the same thing that's happened with the last couple Crowbar records, where I'll see these reviews from these pretentious, just interloper, poser bullshit people, and it might be in like quote unquote respected publications, but they'll say like, oh, it's good, whatever, but there's not really a standout track or whatever. Oh, it's just, they're doing the same thing they've always done. And if you think that Cannibal Corpse is doing just in a good way, they're doing the same thing they've always done. They're staying true to death metal and everything that makes death metal great, and they're the best at it. But if you listen to their records and you think they all sound the same and you can't find a standout track on a Cannibal record, you're a fucking poser. You're a poser. You don't even know what death metal is. You don't even know how to listen to it. You probably don't even really understand metal. You're a fucking poser. I had to cancel a subscription to some shit. Not on the new Cannibal Corpse record, but the one before, because I read a review, clearly probably written by some 20-year-old, and it was like sarcastic and just poser shit. Just poser shit. They've got a songwriting team, and it's always kind of operated that way. And different dudes will write their own songs or they'll collaborate, you know. And right now you've got Rutan, who was in Morbid Angel. You got Rob Barrett, who's been in a bunch of sick bands. Every band he's in is just better. Whatever record he's involved in is just better. Malevolent Creation, I mean, you can look at that. Every record that he was on is their best record. And you got Alex Webster, who's like original member, obviously, songwriting, probably written more Cannibal Corpse songs than anybody at this point. And they each have their own unique style. And when they collaborate, it makes something cool too. But if you can't, like Rutan's stuff got that evil atonal Morbid Angel vibe a little bit. And Hate Eternal, obviously, his band. Barrett's got like, he has some technicality and impressive, smart stuff, but it's most of his stuff just fucking slams, grooves. He loves New York hardcore, right? Alex Webster's stuff would be like really technical, but then also the most primitive. Like he wrote Scourge of Iron. There's kind of some technical stuff in that song, but it's also could be the heaviest, most brutal caveman shit ever written. So between those three dudes, if you can't hear a standout track, you don't have taste. You don't care about death metal. You don't know shit about death metal. You don't understand it. Cannibal Corpse is the best and greatest death metal band ever at this point. There's no disputing it. Live, they're still better than pretty much every goddamn death metal band ever. And I love them so much, man. And it's always good to see them. They always got good dudes on the crew, man. Got to see my bud Johnny Knobs, who does front of house for him. Texas dude, living the dream in Mexico. Got to see Kenny, merch guy, Arizona dude, good dude. It's just a good group of folks, man. And they have never wavered. That doesn't mean every record sounds the same, because it doesn't. And if you think it does, you're a fucking poser and an idiot, like I said. But they have never wavered as being at the top of the heap when it comes to death metal. And they still are. I love them so much. And RIP to anybody that tries to hang with that band. What else is going on? Oh, my wife and I went and saw Friday the 13th in an old historical theater downtown Austin on Friday the 13th. And the dude that introduced it asked the crowd if anybody had ever seen it before. I was thinking certainly everybody in there had seen it, but half the people in there raised their hand that they'd never seen it. So we got to see them just get annihilated by those cheap jump scares. And it was really fascinating to see how that movie, that's a cheap ass slasher flick for sure. They were cashing in on the Halloween hype and wanted to sort of cash in on those box office numbers. But that movie was engineered to work in a movie theater, and to watch it work on people in real time, people flying out of their seats, dude. People were, I don't want to spoil anything, but people getting their heads chopped off and the whole crowd's like screaming, cheering and shit. So that was fun. You can learn lessons about working an audience from anything. And movies are a good thing to study for how to work with dynamics and ebbs and flows and pulling people one direction and hitting them from the other direction. You know, you can do that with music too. And I think that's a connection that horror and metal have, is like, you just trying to smash people, it's cool. So then a couple nights ago, got a text from my friend Gina from Baroness, reminding me that they were in Austin. Dude, I'm such a hermit now. I've deleted all social media except for this podcast. And I was already kind of out of the loop. I'm getting older. I care less and less about, not that I don't care about Baroness. I love Baroness, always have. Toured with them back in 2016 with Pallbearer. It was a great time. They're great friends. So not talking about them, not talking about bands like Cannibal Corpse or bands that I love, but just trying to keep up in general with what's going on. It's like less, got a lot going on, man. I got a lot going on. I didn't even want to do this podcast today. It's a sunglasses podcast if you're just listening. And I found that it's easy to do stuff when you want to do it. Duh. Any asshole can do that. But I think it's when you don't want to do something is when you should really do it. So that's why I'm here today recording this. But I got the sunglasses on because I found over the last 3 years they are an effective layer of protection between myself and reality. It's not a total disconnect like what I used to do, but it's a slight disconnect and barrier between the harsh realities of life and your cerebral cortex, So it's a sunglasses episode, but yeah, just a lot of shit going on. Your priorities shift as you get older, and some of it is just out of the necessities of the way that life plays out, So I'm saying something very short in the longest possible way. What I'm saying is I'm a little bit out of the loop, but fortunately, there are thoughtful people in the world. And Gina texted me and said, "Hey, you're still in Austin, right? We're playing," which meant the world to me, man. Nobody just texts anymore. Everybody's got a comment on your Instagram. And we talked about that at the show. Gina and my wife and I were kind of saying like, you like cyber stalking people. It's like a very watered down version of like stalking. That's what we're all doing with this Instagram, Facebook shit. I don't know anybody that has TikTok. If you do, I'm sorry. Life will get better. But we have this illusion that we're involved in each other's lives and that we're aware of what's going on in each other's lives, but it's a total illusion. And that's a big reason why I got rid of all that shit. It's just, we talked about that too. It just it's never brought me any joy. This connection, this podcast and all this YouTube shit and getting the emails 100% brings me joy every day. So I'm still doing it, man. But anyway, yeah, she reached out. It means a lot. Fucking awesome that people will still actually text you. And we went and saw Baroness on our wedding anniversary. My wife is a very patient and loving person, but man, it's just cool to see friends. They were great, obviously. My friend Jesse from Arizona is teching for him, and Jesse and I used to work gigs in the Phoenix area. This is when I was still drinking, and so this fool saw me barely clinging to reality, running cables and shit for Motorhead and Huey Lewis, Charlie Daniels, and Leonard Skinner. I think I was sober by Skinner, actually. I can't remember. But anyway, man, he was like, I was telling these dudes, me and Nate used to work these gigs at the bottom rung of the ladder, and he was all fucked up, and now he's ripped and making cool music. And I blushed, man. It feels good. I the last time I saw that fool was a Crowbar show at Crescent Ballroom in Phoenix, which was probably 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I had no idea my friend Michael would be there, who I met on tour. He was tour managing Skeleton Witch back in the day. And I just saw him. I did an episode about it. Saw him with Carcass not that long ago at the Mohawk. And I had no idea he was out with them. So I got to see him too. It was just fucking rad, man. It was a warm welcome. The last time I saw Baroness, it was still kind of COVID-y. So it was weird. Everybody was freaked out, awkward. We're still a little bit awkward, but it was way, way more, I don't know. There's just a lot of love, man. It just felt good. It felt good. It always feels good to be in that world, man. It's just, those are very special bonds. The bonds between touring musicians. It's like, those are some of my favorite relationships I have in my life. So it was cool. So yeah, that's what's been going on. I'm going to get to fan mail so that, I mean, I'm trying to make this a shorter one. Jesus, we'll see. Okay, I hope I don't mess your name up, dude. Kiernan, what's happening, Nate? First off, I've been loving the new album as well as the podcast, and both have accompanied me while I'm tearing up weeds at my job. I work seasonal contracts as a groundskeeper on a ranch in New Mexico, and the recent Spirit Adrift releases always seem to come out at the right time for me. Last summer, Mass Formation Psychosis came out while I was going through a rough patch at the ranch and just clicked like nothing else could at the time. This past summer, Ghost at the Gallows dropped the same day my girlfriend finished her contract and had to move back to Tucson, which is about 10 hours away. I said goodbye, cried for a bit, and then immediately put on my headphones and got my first full listen to the new album. It really was a perfect headspace for it, so sincerely thank you for all those beautiful moments of music has brought myself and so many others. Thanks, man. A question I've been wanting to ask is, what is your opinion on the album Dehumanizer by Black Sabbath? Personally, it's one of my favorites, but I never seem to hear it mentioned anywhere. Songs like I, and Computer God have some of the heaviest riffs I've ever heard, and they make me want to ram my fucking car off a highway. Anyways, thanks for everything you do and hope to catch you on the road again, hopefully soon. My buddy and I caught both of your shows in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they were phenomenal. P.S. I attached a picture that was taken of me on top of the Tooth of Time, one of my ranch's famous peaks. My summer crew and I decided to hike it with our weed whackers, which was extremely stupid, and I made sure to rep my Spirit Adrift hat. Thought you might appreciate it. Man, first of all, thank you, Kieran. I have a place in my heart for manual laborers, having been one myself in many different scenarios, and still in a lot of ways in that position quite frequently in my life. I love it, man. There's nothing better than getting dirty and working hard. So thank you for your service. That phrase is reserved for certain people, but you're doing the world a service, man. You're taking care of the earth. That's rad. That's a cool picture. And don't ram your car off a highway, but I know what you mean. Dehumanizer is hard as fuck, dude. I love that album. And if you listen to our music, you can tell I love that album. I have written a couple of songs. I've written a couple of songs that were like, ooh, I want to do like something that's inspired by Ozzy era Sabbath. And there's parts on Mass Formation Psychosis. I mean, that's a very specific example of that. But then there's some songs where I was like, I want to sort of like channel the non-Ozzy Sabbath, whether that's, Born Again or Headless Cross, even Cross Purposes, Eternal Idol, whatever. But one of my favorite, obviously the first two Dio Sabbath albums are perfect, two of the best metal records ever. But Dehumanizer's overlooked, man. That record has inspired quite a few sections of Spirit Adrift songs. I love it so much. I think that's one of their, there's like a cult following for that record, obviously, but I still think it's underrated. And I think part of that is because of when it came out, 1992, I guess. And that's off the dome, right? But it's early 90s. There was a lot of poser shit going on. There was grunge. Grunge isn't poser shit, but like real ass traditional type metal was not cool then. Dio and Sabbath broke up again right after that record. And when he was going on solo tours, he was playing clubs, I think. And Iron Maiden, Bruce wasn't in Iron Maiden around that time. They were playing clubs. Can you believe that? I mean, they're playing stadiums now. Every show they play is like a giant sold out stadium show, and they sell $100 bazillion. They sell as much merch as could pay for what our government's asking for war support right now, But back in the 90s, that wasn't the case. And so I think some of those records are great, but they got a little bit overlooked. But Dehumanizer is one of the best Black Sabbath records. I used to work out to that song on repeat. Shit is hard, man. That song I is literally about just being the biggest badass in the universe. It's fucking awesome. So yeah, man, Dehumanizer rules. John, hi Nate. I've been meaning to write you about your episode on William Friedkin for a while. It's good to hear you talk about him because he's also one of my favorite directors. Honestly, he's one of the greatest of all time. He's way more than just the director of The Exorcist. Speaking of traveling, I recently traveled from where I live in North Carolina to Calgary, Alberta to see Iron Maiden. Dude, weird. While I was there, a local theater was showing Sorcerer. I couldn't pass up the chance of seeing it on a big screen. Made me think of you. Have you seen Wages of Fear? Sorcerer is sort of a remake of that movie from 1953. Anyway, I love to hear you talk about movies because music and movies are my two favorite things. I co-host a podcast called Retro Blood about 1980s horror movies and heavy metal. So this episode hit on all cylinders for me. I just wanted to write you, tell you about this little connection I felt with you, and hopefully I can see you again on the next tour. Your show in Greenville, South Carolina this past summer was awesome. Thanks for everything. So shout out Retro Blood podcast. 80s horror movies and heavy metal. Those are two of my favorite things for sure. I haven't seen Wages of Fear. I'm jealous you got to see Sorcerer on the big screen. That's cool. Can't even find the Blu-ray right now. Yeah, I might get around to it someday, but it's just, I'm sure that I would like Sorcerer more. So, dude, and shout out to Greenville, South Carolina. Never had a bad show there. And that last show we played there with Midnight, and Rodney, who I don't want to snitch him out, but Rodney from Devastation, great 80s, late 80s, early 90s thrash band. Rodney tours with Midnight, handles their merch and stuff. And that night in Greenville, he's like, tonight was yours, man. I call it like I see it. He's like, I fucking love Midnight. We're some of my best friends, obviously. But you guys got him tonight. That felt good, dude, coming from him. But, they got us, too. I was actually just watching an interview with Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse, where she's like, you got to have that attitude. Even bands that opening for us, you have to have the attitude. I'm going to fucking destroy Cannibal Corpse tonight. When we toured with them, when Gatecreeper toured with them and Power Trip, that was the vibe. All three bands were trying to destroy each other. And it's fun, man. It doesn't mean you can't be best buds, but that friendly, really rabid competition is like good for the bands. It's fun. It's good for the crowd. And if you have that attitude, we're just going to do the best we can. Fuck you. Get off the stage. Go do something else. But anyway, that's what I think of when I think of Greenville is that was probably the best show for us on that Midnight tour. It was sick. So thank you, man. Thanks for the support. Oh boy. So I had a couple of things on the YouTube comments. Hobo Jungle was asking about the first Pallbearer tour incident that I alluded to on the last episode. I was talking about the Anvil documentary and how Lips from Anvil goes after that promoter in Europe who's trying to dick them out of their pay or whatever, puts them up against the wall and threatens to kill them and fuck everybody up and stuff. And I love that scene in that movie. It's like, it was really inspiring to me when I watched it. And I happened to watch that right before the first Pallbearer tour, where I was like, I wasn't tour man. I was in no condition to tour manage. I didn't even know what a tour manager was, but I maybe like the the dictator of the vibes or something, like the ambassador of chaos vibes. So yeah, 2012, we had run into each other at South by, and they were just like amazed by the chaos. There was like a force field of chaos around me at all times in 2012, because I was getting really into, I had read like Daniel Pinchbeck's book and a couple other things. I've mentioned this before, where a lot of people, a lot of hippie psychedelic burnouts, fake geniuses thought that the Mayan calendar indicated the world was going to end in December 2012. So where I was at in life, I just sort of lived accordingly. I hedged my bets, like, well, if it does happen, I want to make sure that this year is like the most insane year of my life. And I just lived every day like that. And yeah, I knew Pallbearer from Arkansas. I had heard that first record in its infancy and in various stages, because my band Sinking South at the time was recording demo, I guess, EP at the same studio our buddy Chuck from Deadbird, and Pallbearer was coming to Fayetteville on the weekends and shit and working on that first record. So I was aware of Pallbearer. I was a fan of Pallbearer. We connected South by Southwest 2012, total chaos. And then they asked me to do that first tour, which I did. It was later that year. Might have been like winter. And man, that whole tour was just gnarly. I remember leaving a show in DC and driving west through West Virginia. And it was so like everybody, the van was just like inoperable almost. And in order to get the turn signal to work, you had to turn the key forward while you're going down the road. So essentially you had to take both hands off the steering wheel to get the blinkers to work, like the electrical system. And only one speaker worked. And I remember driving that night after DC and listening to the first Black Sabbath album, which, because it was only one speaker, it was like a totally different mix. And I was hearing all kinds of guitar stuff, vocal subtleties that I'd never heard. And everybody was passed out. And there were 800 million deer just flanked on both sides of this 2-lane road, middle of the night. And I was so like shell shocked by the possibility of a deer running out. I was so anxious, and like my nervous system was so charged up. I remember I'm just listening to that. I don't recommend doing this, and it's not like a source of pride or anything. This is just how this tour was. I had a bottle of Jim Beam in one hand and the steering wheel in the other, listening to the first Sabbath record, trying not to lose my fucking shit, because there's like a 99% chance of a deer running out for like hours. And having to pull off, like I found a Tractor Supply warehouse and pulled off, parked in the parking lot, and fell asleep in the driver's seat with the steering wheel right there. Couldn't even lean it back because somebody was behind me, with my shoes on, everything. Just sat up in the driver's seat, passed out until the sun came up. So that was the vibe of that tour. We were making good and bad impressions everywhere we went. I know Mike from Inner Arma, we met for the first time in New York. He hated my guts until the next time we hung out. He didn't like me at all, dude. And we stayed with the Elder Dudes in Boston, which I didn't even know until a couple years ago. It was fucking news to me until somebody mentioned it a couple years ago. They were like, "You met the Elder guys?" I'm like, "When?" Like, "We stayed with them in Boston." And Brett was like, "Yeah, I don't think they were too psyched on me and you." So, yeah, it was just fucking chaos. Good, the bad, and the ugly. But so the specific incident I'm referring to happened, I'm not going to name like locations and stuff, but we played a show and the promoter took off, which is like at this level. And it was at that time, is something that you deal with. Sometimes the promoter takes off and you don't get paid. And I had just watched that Anvil documentary where Lips goes completely ballistic on that dude. So that was kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And I was ready to just drive off. I didn't even really know what was going on. But then Pallbearer and the other band that was on the tour were kind of mingling on the sidewalk, and everybody was fucking angry and complaining about how this dude just ditched out and didn't pay anybody. And it was this old tired story of he was going to go get the money and whatever. And I wasn't really aware of like whether he was at the venue or not at the venue or whatever. And the venue was closed, but they forgot to lock the door. So I just went in the front door and it was empty except for one lady that had worked the bar. And she was like doing the very last bit of cleanup. And I was like, hey, trying to get her attention. Where is this dude? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like following her around the whole place while she's like cleaning up her little closing duties or whatever. And she's ignoring me, blowing me off, doesn't want nothing to do with it. And she's like literally not running from me, but like making an effort to get out of there without even acknowledging that I exist. I'm just following her. And then she goes through this office door and it says, you know, office, whatever, do not enter. When she opens a door to go in there, I see, I guess, the owner of the bar or the manager of the bar. Like I just catch a glimpse. The door opens. I catch a glimpse of this dude in a chair at a computer counting like stacks of cash. I'm like, all right, well, there's some money. And he kind of sees me. He's like, oh shit, sort of indicates to her like, hurry up and shut that door. And she's tried to slam the door in my face. And it's not a situation where I kicked in a door that was locked and like broke the door or whatever, but I kicked the door open, let's say, and came in hot. Came in as hot as lips in that that Anvil documentary. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I'm sure there was threats and shit like that. And I was like, you better let this guy know we're gonna I was like, I want his address, give me his phone number. I think we already had his phone number, but I think I might have, this is like 11 years ago, so it's a little blurry, but I got some information on this guy. But what I do remember saying to the guy counting the stacks of money is, you better get this motherfucker back here right now and pay these bands, or I'm just going to take that shit from you right now. And I pointed at the stack of cash. And I mean, to his credit, he pretty sure they called the promoter like, listen, dude, this guy is fucking not right. You better get back here. And so then I went out and got the guy's number either from the dude in the office or from Joe from Pallbearer or somebody. The promoter's name was Joey. And for whatever reason, I called him up. He answered. I said, hey, motherfucker, is this Joey Shithead? And Joey Shithead is a singer and guitarist for DOA. And he's like a city councilman in Canada somewhere. But I don't know why I called him that, but we still laugh about that shit to this day. Like, hey, motherfucker, is this Joey Shithead? And he was like, what? Who is this? I'm like, this is a guy that's like, you need to fucking bring some money to. And the band that was on tour with Pallbearer was about to leave. They were so bummed. They were like, he's not coming back. There's no way, whatever. And I was like, do not leave. Nobody's leaving till we get this money. And the guy got the money and came back. And I've heard from people in that town that he's still a promoter and that he's got his shit together and he's like doing a much better job now. And I don't know if he's going to run off and not pay anybody, but I think if we hadn't squeezed him, there's a possibility that would have happened. So that's the first Pallbearer tour incident that I alluded to. Very funny now, but I still got that dog in me. Now I just apply it to merch cuts, which, by the way, come to find out, those Live Nation merch cuts going away, that's only for 90 days. So they just want to do away with that for 3 months and trick everybody into thinking that they're doing away with it forever. So all of a sudden everybody loves Live Nation. Cunts. Okay. Cole, I do feel with the age of digital music, album art is just not as powerful as it used to be. My question to you is if you could have a discussion on music videos. For me, I am 2 years older than you, but MTV's heyday was a part of my youth as it was with you. With YouTube and Spotify as the new way we are introduced to bands, I feel like the music video just doesn't have the same effect as it used to. Do you still enjoy making music videos, or is it just something you have to do as a band? Both, but honestly, I don't think you even have to do it as a band anymore. I think it's the logic and the theory lately is that people are more likely to listen to something if there is a visual accompaniment, which is why you see lyric videos, visualizer videos, and all that kind of bullshit. As far as those goes, I don't care about those at all. There's 2 for our new record, I Shall Return and Death Won't Stop Me, and those are great. That guy did a killer job. He is actually like a huge fan of the band and understood. We talked about the themes and this and that, and he made adjustments and actually cared. So those are cool. For the most part, I don't give a rat's ass about those lyric videos or visualizer videos. It's a means to an end. You need some sort of visual accompaniment, and the experts think that somebody's more likely to listen to your music. But I think that theory is already irrelevant and obsolete. As far as like actual music videos, I might not ever do one again, but I have loved the ones that we've done. I love the process, and I take that shit seriously because I don't want to be represented in any way that isn't cool and cohesive and powerful and meaningful. So what's our first music video? Our first music video is Hear Her, totally inspired by the movie Possession. And the guy that directed it is my really dear friend, Guilherme Enriquez. I said that like a redneck, but whatever. He's from Portugal. I think he lives in the Netherlands now. And he sings for that band Garrett. And he's in that band Oak. And when I met him, he was singing for the Ominous Circle. And he mentioned that he was a music video director. Dude, he's one of the best at his craft of anybody in the world at that. Talk about caring. European, this is a broad, gross generalization, but Europeans tend to care more about art than Americans and Westerners. It's like a huge, huge part of their culture. They don't have NFL. They do have football, but art is just like more important to them. And we've done, me and Guilherme have done that. Hear Her. We did Screaming from Beyond, which was sort of based on Phantasm a little bit. But I had the idea for the twist where the guy basically, there's like a lot of metaphorical meaning to it, but the guy like kills himself at the end, destroys himself, and then we did Wake Up, which is more fun, like 80s new wave of British heavy metal, almost like an AC/DC video or something like that. But every time I've worked with Guilherme, I'll send him the song, I'll write out a little treatment. I don't know how to write a script, but I just write a treatment. And then he gets ideas cooking and we go back and forth. We'll chat about it. And I love those videos. I mean, every time I get a video from him, I'm just like, oh my God. Like, he is making stuff that looks like he's got 100 times the budget that he has. He works. He's very generous and kind to bands because he plays in bands and he understands the expenses and stuff like that. But the product is just like outrageously good. What else? Angel and Abyss and Battle High. Those were cool. Angel, I hunted down the MTV music video font, like the exact, and we put it there and we ran it through a VHS to give it kind of that old vintage vibe. But then when the riff kicks in, it switches to high def, which was symbolic because never tried to present Spirit Adrift as like a retro throwback band or anything like that. So there's some symbolism there visually. I mean, I take the videos super seriously. super seriously. Battle High is like obviously 100% anti-war, which will always be relevant as long as people are profiting off of war or waging war over arbitrary, fantastical religious bullshit or fucking waging genocide on people, which is probably going to be going on forever until we nuke ourselves off the earth. What else? Okay, Wombat Fire, our buddy from Georgia, came out and did Barn Burner. That was sort of inspired by Midnight Mass, the Mike Flanagan show. That one that's up there with my favorites for sure. And then Hangman was cool. Hangman was more kind of Texas Chainsaw, Evil Dead. I had an idea. The treatment that I wrote out for Hangman was we're going to be in a green screen studio, just like Battle High and just like Angel and Abyss. And we're playing, and there's a horror movie playing behind us. And there's a killer, like the Hanged Man is this like gnarly looking killer in this horror movie that's playing on the green screen. And then at a certain point, he comes out of the green screen and we break the fourth wall. It zooms out and you see all the lighting and the gear and the director and everybody. And you see us on this green screen stage and the Hanged Man comes out, totally fucking ruins our music video shoot, violently kills everybody. So there's like an element, it's like a Freddy's Dead meets Wes Craven's New Nightmare kind of thing, you know? And so I felt like there would be a really good humorous element to it, like Red Fang video. Red Fang has the best music videos in the modern day. And Municipal Waste Electrified Brain is a great video too. I was going for something like that. But you know, you asked, is it something that bands just have to do? Well, when you're dealing with managers and shit like that, guess what? They don't give a shit about art at all. They are looking at numbers and money, and they will talk you into doing shit and talk you out of doing shit for all the wrong reasons. So I don't hate the Hangman video, and it's not Wombat's fault. If it's anybody's fault, it's my fault, because I tried to listen to other people. And I'm learning more and more not to fucking do that. You know, I live in recovery, which means that I'm supposed to not be a selfish, egomaniacal prick. But a lot of times when I listen to other people, they fuck my whole shit up. So if I'm blaming anybody for not being fully satisfied with that video, blame myself for listening to people that were fucking wrong. Okay, I think that's all our questions. God damn it, I said I was going to do a short one. I didn't. I'm going to break down Life is Killing Me here, because somebody asked me to run this one down and run down Dead again. Pete's mom was dying during the making of Life is Killing Me. Title track talks about that. Brutal, just sort of a continuation of World Coming Down, but then they brought back sort of the funny, bullshitty songs. There is a 10 out of 10 record in here, and I'm going to give you the track listing. 13, opening song, good enough intro, whatever. But let's start this record with I Don't Want to Be Me, 10 out of 10. Next song, Less Than Zero. Next song, Todd's Ship Gods. We're going to skip I Like Goils. That song sucks. We all know that song sucks. Everybody got up in arms because it's whatever, homophobic, whatever. It's a fucking shitty joke song. Relax. We're going to go next to A Dish Best Served Coldly. How Could She? Life is Killing Me. Nettie. We Were Electrocute. If You Don't Kill Me, I'm Going to Have to Kill You. We're going to skip Angry Inch. We're going to go to Anesthesia. We're going to skip Drunken Paris. We're going to go to Dream is Dead. That is a 10 out of 10 album. That's what I'm talking about. Every Typo record's good. They just put jokey bullshit on there, self-deprecating, whatever. They're making fun of themselves and how weird the band is and what a bunch of assholes they are and what a bunch of assholes and sensitive pussies everybody else is. And I don't really like those songs personally, but if you take them out, you got a 10 out of 10 record. Like I said, this was the first one I ever heard. Heard him on Freddy vs. Jason somehow, even though it's like 2 seconds in the background. and wore it out, man. And I still wear it out. We were listening to it on the way to the Scream Hollow haunted house the other night, and it was perfect, man. The Dream is Dead might have been the last Typo song ever. Josh Silver had enrolled to become an EMT by the time they made this record, and they were all kind of not sure if the band was going to keep going. They almost called the record The Dream is Dead, but then they were like, man, that sounds kind of final, and we're not sure if the band's over. But if Dream is Dead had been the last Typo song, man, it would have been a perfect way to go. And then they faked Peter's death like shortly after the record came out, a couple years after. Yeah, and the line in that song is, I can't believe that things turned out this way. That's heavy stuff, man. Everybody can relate to that at a certain point. I love this record, man. I love it. I always will. It's very special to me. 2003 was a different time, man. I just watched Scary Movie 3 the other day, which came out around then. Opens with Pam Anderson and Jenny McCarthy having a pillow fight, giving each other wedgies and smashing chairs over each other's heads and shit. The dude that made Naked Gun made that movie, actually, and Leslie Nielsen's in it. But dude, 03, like, I went and saw Metallica in 03, and I saw more boobs than I have like in the rest of my life combined. Yeah, I'm mentioning this because there's these like songs on here that, or the one song, I guess, that offended a lot of people. And that was the point. That was the point. Like, that was the point of Carnivore Retaliation, was to hurt you and offend you. And extreme music. And I like Goyle's song. I don't listen to that shit. What grown man would grown anybody would spend their time listening to such a silly, stupid, pointless song that probably shouldn't even exist? But it was just a different time, dude. People fucking lighten up. People did not take things so seriously. Go watch Chappelle's show and see what 2003, 4, 5 was like. I don't know. Yeah, there's quote unquote controversy around a lot of Peter Steele, Typo Negative, Carnivore stuff. But you know, if we're canceling people based on merits, Ozzy Osbourne tried to strangle his wife to death. So we can't pick and choose here, people. Fucking get over it. And that's my thoughts on Life Is Killing Me. All right, I'll see y'all next episode. I'm going to talk about Dead again and see if we can do like a Halloween type episode, and then we'll be done with Typo Negative, and Champ Morgan can start celebrating. All right, love y'all. Be good.